Hi, it's Tree, and it's day 6 of 100 days of Wakefield comics. Today I edited Lorena's clothes. So the reason I edited her clothes is that the writer, Sunny, was looking at them, and we both decided we weren't too happy with them, so I changed the shorts very slightly, and we're both much more happier with them. I also edited Frankie's and Emery's outfit sketches just because they just weren't the standard that I wanted them to be. Like, the clothes were just too oversized, is what I thought, so I changed them. And then I worked on page 8 and sketches for that. Lots of sketching. So now that that's over with, I'm gonna lay in bed and talk some more. So I've been saying I would talk about my AP English experience, and if I'm talking kind of low right now, I have a migraine, so I apologize for that. But my junior year of high school, I started AP English, even though the first 2 years of high school, I was in regular English, so let's talk about all that and how I got there. So freshman year and sophomore year, I had the same English teacher for those years, and she would see consistently that I would get my work done and my work would be good. There was even a time I turned in one of my final essays early, so she was kind of impressed with that and recommended that Sorry, I got interrupted. But she recommended I start AP English. And at the time, I remember being really happy about that because someone was acknowledging my work and that felt good. Little did I know AP English wasn't gonna be that good. So around 2014 and 2015, I was also in a toxic relationship where me and the person just weren't meant for each other. Let's put it that way. I wasn't good to them. They weren't good to me. It's one of those things, and it was an online relationship. And I don't really remember this relationship being bad until I started AP English. And if you don't know what AP English is, it's basically an advanced English course. And if you ace a big test at the end of the semester, you can count your advanced English credit as one of your college credits. And over the summer, you are supposed to read 2 books and basically write about the books and talk about them and what your reading was like or whatever. And I ended up doing that assignment. But because I had never had AP English before, I didn't really know if I was doing it right. And on top of that, in the toxic relationship, I ended up being diagnosed with PCOS that same year. Basically, my body produces too much insulin, so I have to take drugs to regulate it. I just mean like over-the-counter drugs like metformin, stuff that would be typically for diabetes, because they want to avoid me getting diabetes. So all of these things started piling up one after another on that junior year. So my fall semester, I didn't end up having AP English, which at the time I thought it sucked because I wouldn't be able to remember the 2 books I read that summer, which was The Great Gatsby and A Tale of Two Cities. And you know what? Later I was right. I did not remember what happened in those books. So I ended up going to SparkNotes and trying to figure out what the hell I read over the summer. So my first day ended up being in spring of 2015. So when I was either 17 or 18 at that time. And the first day we did one of those assignments where we would read a passage in a book and then answer the questions on the next page. And I ended up doing that correctly. And then we turned in all of our work, as well as the new assignments, so she could grade them that day. The next day, she gave me back my paper, and I realized that I left off a page of that homework that we did in class, and I got all the other questions right, so I figured I'd tell her and see if we could sort it out, because when I was in regular English, that was okay. And when I tried to do that this time and talk to her about it, she basically shoved it back in my hand and told me that she didn't want it. And that kind of just left a sour taste in my mouth. But at the end of the day, I kind of realized that that was my mistake and just not to do it again. I hear a lot of people being like, after this day, the teacher treated me differently, but it seems really ridiculous. And I hate being one of those people, but I just feel like after that day, she kind of treated me a little bit differently. I don't know. Some of these things I can realize that it was my bad, but also, like, I was going through so much stuff at the time, it's hard to process. So another thing about advanced English, AP English, is that every day you have to write an essay, and it's basically gearing you up for the AP exam, where you would have to write an essay in that time period and make sure it's good. As for regular English, the most essays we would write was usually 3 at most, and they'd be like at each quarter of the semester. So the first kind of essay we would write is basically creative, and then argumentative, where you would take a point from the paper and either argue for or against it and compile all your points about that, or it would be an essay talking about what was in the paper you just read, or even another paper would be like talking about 2 different papers and comparing the points in both and contrasting and things like that. I don't remember every single essay I wrote for that class, but you didn't do just essays in that class. Of course, you'd have tests, and even there would be spelling tests. And because of all that going on in my personal life, as well as classes, I just feel like I probably got super overwhelmed. One of the things they put me on for PCOS was birth control. So for the first half of the semester, they were trying to get all my levels correct for the birth control. So I would be super emotional. And all I remember mostly about AP English was that I would have panic attacks before class every day, and I would cry before going to school because I didn't want to think about going to AP English that day. But I wouldn't just have one panic attack before going to English and crying before going to school. No, I'd have more panic attacks because during lunchtime, she expected us to go in and do class time during the only break we would have that day. There were so many times where I'd be crying, trying to convince my grandma to tell them to switch me out of that class. But the thing is, my school had this policy where you wouldn't be able to transfer out of a class because it's too hard. They would not let you. So I was just stuck in that class all semester. And you'd think that smart kids would be nicer, but I feel like I was bullied a little bit. Like, they were kind of mean. I would trade my papers with one girl in that class every day because she would make you guys trade papers to read and critique them, and then she would read and critique your papers. And usually when the other student would critique my paper, she didn't really have much to say, But when I'd get the comments back from my teachers, I would end up with like 40s or 50s because I would have sentence fragments or things like that that weren't to her standard. And bear in mind, I was never used to making that low of a grade before. I was used to making pretty high grades in my English, and throughout high school, I'd make pretty high grades except for in math. I've never been good at math, so it kind of freaked me out a little bit. But there was this one day she gave my paper to the smartest kid in the class and told him to critique me. And I had to critique his paper, but I didn't really have anything to say on his paper because he was the smartest kid in the class. So I'd find the most minimal things to critique him on. And then once I handed him his paper back, he had his friends talk to him about the critiques I made, which isn't a bad thing, but it just made me panic a little. And when I told this story to my half-brother recently, he was like, dude, it kind of made it seem like your teacher is telling you were stupid because she paired you with the smartest kid in the class. And that kind of sucks. I remember this one time when she's asked me twice that semester to talk to her out in the hallway because she wanted to figure out what was going on with me. And I'd tell her I wanted to transfer out of her class, but they wouldn't let me. And this one time, she grabbed a hold of my arm and walked me down the hallway to where she had papers hanging up on the hallway of past AP students who had passed the AP exam. And she told me that she thought I could be one of them. But for me, it's hard to picture me as one of them because I just felt so bad that semester about myself, about my life. So I talked about how I'd start my morning off before class, after class, during class, and I didn't talk after school actually, but I would come home and I would have to write these essays, and I'd spend most of my night trying to write these essays, which led to little time to spend with my ex-girlfriend. So we would end up fighting and arguing a lot, and they expected me to talk to them during school, which isn't a bad thing, but I just felt so isolated from my friends because of AP English, and I didn't get to spend much time with them, and it just wasn't a good experience. So after AP English, I would have German 3 class, which was basically my foreign language. They required you to have 2 at my high school, and I already had 2, so my third one was just extra. But 2 of the girls that were with me in German 3 were also in my AP English class. And she assigned us German 3 students to write about, like, make a PowerPoint about a country, about Germany, about places in Germany, and I was writing an essay about it, which wasn't what she wanted, and they kind of made fun of me, like, you can't make good essays in AP English, why do you expect to make a good essay for German 3? But overall, German 3 was kind of a space I could go to after AP English and kind of feel better about my day. And I think my German teacher could tell I was feeling a little overwhelmed with everything. And, she probably noticed that I didn't have any friends in AP English and things like that, and how I would react after coming from that class. I remember the last day, my teacher made me stay back from AP English to talk to me about my final paper. And again, I didn't remember what the books we read over the summer, and it was about the books we had read over the summer. And she was telling me about how with that paper I barely passed. And I felt really embarrassed because the next class was coming in while she was talking to me about this. So she told my German 3 teacher that she had kept me back. And I remember going to my locker to get my German stuff, crying because I was so upset. And it's kind of weird that I'm still upset about this to this day. But when I got to my German class, she let me lay my head down and not do any work that day, which was very nice of her. We did our AP English exam, and I remember coming out of it and already knowing that I didn't do well on it because I felt so bad about myself. I don't know. And when I got my AP English grades back, I wasn't surprised to see that, like she said, I barely passed the class, and I didn't make it high enough on the AP English exam to be able to take it as a college credit. So when I applied for classes the next year, I already knew I would not be taking AP English again because I was super afraid that I would have that teacher again. And I think that's everything about my AP English experience. I definitely do see how I made some mistakes, but also there's just a lot going on during that time. And this is long enough, so maybe I'll talk about what happened to me after AP English. So thanks for listening to me, and I'll see you next time.